The New York Mets were unable to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers on Tuesday night. And while that would usually bother me, Rays lost too. So no harm, no foul. On the show today, I will discuss the Mets' loss. I'm also going to talk about who has been struggling offensively over the last couple of weeks for the Mets, as this lineup has hit a little bit of a skid. Then we will close the show focusing on the positive side, because there's one guy who has been tearing the cover off the ball the last 2 weeks and since the beginning of August, and that is Mark Canha. I want to talk about what he has meant to the Mets this season.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. Want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the New York Mets unable to get much going offensively in this game, which is a little bit interesting because in the first inning, it felt like the exact opposite was going to happen. Brandon Nemo leads things off with a base hit. Starling Marte then goes to lay down a bunt, something we haven't seen much of out of him this year. Rolls one down the first base line that really could have gone foul. Andrew Heaney not only helps the Mets by picking up that ball, but he does this backhanded flip to Freddie Freeman that was nowhere close to him, rolled into the outfield, which allowed not only Marte to get all the way to third, but Brandon Nemo to go from first all the way around and score. And the Mets are sitting there with a 1-0 lead. Starling Marte is standing on third base with nobody out. So you figure, all right, going to be 2-0 in a minute here, because how will the Mets go through the heart of their lineup with Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Darren Ruff, who's out there to mash against lefties, and not get that runner in? Well, Lindor ends up getting hit by a pitch. Then he ends up later getting caught at second base trying to steal. Pete Alonso struck out prior to that, and then Darren Ruff strikes out as well. So all of that culminates in an inning where the Mets should have done more offensively and didn't, and you lose the game by one. So that's a clear missed opportunity when you have Starling Marte sitting there on third base and you can't get him 90 feet. That's brutal. And you really look at the rest of the game, and top of the third, the Mets lose it. I mean, that's kind of how it works out. When you only score 3 runs, you give up 3 runs in that third inning, and that proved to be pretty much the difference there. Taijuan Walker wasn't bad in this game, and in that inning, he wasn't particularly bad. He gives up a hit to Austin Barnes, then a double to Mookie Betts in a full count. I mean, it's really tough to face a hitter like that. He almost got out of it going through Trey Turner, striking him out, getting Freddie Freeman to pop out. But unfortunately, he walked Max Muncy. He hit Joey Gallo with a pitch that brought in a run, and then he gave up a hit to Gavin Lux on the first pitch he saw, and that drove in 2 more runs. Suddenly, 3-1 Dodgers. And for Taijuan, that was really the only damage he would allow in that game. Goes 5 1/3, pitched into that 6th inning before getting removed after giving up a double. The Mets got a couple runs back to tie that game. Starling Marte homered in the 3rd. Mark Canha homered in the 4th. And so through 6, it ends up being a tie ball game. But in the 7th inning, the Mets end up having their bullpen come back to haunt them again. And, the bullpen wasn't the main culprit for losing this game. Actually, overall, Seth Lugo wasn't too bad. Not as dominant as he has been, but he did get a couple of key outs, although he walked a pair. Tommy Hunter was good when he came in, but that was after Joely Rodriguez pitched. And here's where we get back into these situations where Buck Showalter just has bad options. And in that spot, Freddie Freeman leading off an inning, who else was he supposed to go to? You're going to go to your left-handed reliever in that spot. But the only left-handed reliever he has out there is Joely Rodriguez. And Joely Rodriguez, time and again, has come up short for this Mets team. And look, I can look at the advanced data. I see it too. I see what the Mets see in him. he doesn't get hit too hard. Generally speaking, people have not been squaring him up too much. The problem is he walks a ton of batters and he's giving up a bunch of hits. So Freddie Freeman doubles, and that puts you in a bad spot. And granted, Freddie Freeman will double off a lot of pitchers. Whoever the best left-handed reliever in baseball is. I'm not exactly sure who that is this season. Previously, it would have been Josh Hader, but Freddie Freeman could double off of anybody. So it's not a knock to just say, oh, he gave up that hit to Freeman, but it's the entire season. It's the fact that you think about a big playoff game. That's exactly the situation you could be talking about. Tied up, seventh inning, Freddie Freeman steps in the box. What do? To me, if I'm the front office, I mean, it's kind of trying to give credit to the people that have put you in this situation. But if I was the signal caller up there, I'm not even letting Buck Showalter have Joel Rodriguez to go to. I'm pulling him out of the bullpen on the playoff roster. I'm even having David Peterson there, and Peterson hasn't been great coming out of the bullpen this year. But I'd rather lose my season with Peterson on the hill than Joely, or I'm just not having a lefty out there. I mean, that's pretty much your options. There's no other arms to look at in the minor leagues, really. So that's where you're at. Personally, I'd say Freddie Freeman's coming up, big spot. Tie game, seventh inning. Give me Adam Ottavino. Give me Seth Lugo. Give me Edwin Diaz. Certainly don't give me Joely Rodriguez. In the playoffs, I hope that if nothing else, it's a starting pitcher. It's been bad. And so he gives up that double. He gets a ground out, intentionally walks Will Smith, puts a couple runners on. Gavin Lux ends up getting a base hit that drives in a run. The Mets go to Tommy Hunter. Tommy Hunter is able to get through that inning. And then, the Mets just don't do anything offensively throughout the remainder of the game. Didn't really have a ton of opportunities. Lindor drew a walk in the seventh. In the eighth inning, they went down in order. In the ninth, they got a leadoff hit by Eduardo Escobar. But when Daniel Vogelback grounded into a double play, that really spelled the end of the game for this Mets team. Pete Alonso really struggled on this one. 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Had a chance to do some damage in that seventh inning with Lindor on base. But on the first pitch, he flies out to Mookie Betts, just gets under one, and showed a ton of frustration as he snapped his bat over his knee. We've seen Alonso do that on a strikeout. I can't say if we've seen him do that after putting the ball in play like he did in that spot, but it's understandable. Over the last 2 weeks, he has really, really struggled. In the next segment here, I want to talk about not only Alonso's struggles, but some of the collective woes we've seen from this offense, because there's been a few bright spots like Mark Canha, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, but it's been a lot more sore spots in the lineup as of late. Before we get to that, though, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. There you can find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting to scores and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So over the last 2 weeks, you look at the Mets offense. Mark Canha, been awesome. Okay, we're going to talk about him a little bit. 406 hitter, OPS over 1,300. Don't have to look there to wonder where the offense been coming up short. Starling Marte hitting 300 over his last 13 games played, 15 for 50 with 4 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 7 runs scored, 375 on base, 540 slugging, 915 OPS. Jeff McNeil, 365 average, 389 on base, 462 slugging, 851 OPS. After that, good luck finding a positive offensive contributor. Now, Brandon Nemo has been drawing more walks as a guy that has kind of gone back from what has been his game what was I trying to say there? You know what? This is the perfect time to mention this to the audience. I recorded an entire show tonight with my mic on mute. Entire show. And so I'm tired. And so that's where I was trying to say prior or previous, and I'm stumbling over my words because I can't talk anymore because I've been talking for the last hour, although only half of it has been recorded. What I was talking about was Brandon Nemo. and the fact that earlier this season and throughout this season, the walk rate has tailed down from where it's been in the past. By drawing 9 walks over his last 13 games played, he has once again found a way to kind of smooth out his offensive value, where despite the fact that he's only hitting 229, he has a 790 OPS, and he has been a decent contributor to this offense. He's scored 7 runs. That's tied with Mark Canha for the most among any player on the Mets over the last 15 days. With that said, he's still hitting 229. And so you need a little more from Nemo. You go to Daniel Vogelback, kind of similar, drawn 8 walks and only 28 at bats. That's really impressive. 361 on base percentage, but he's hitting 179. I don't know if the hamstring is impacting the power. I guess in some respects you could say no, because over the last 15 days of his 5 hits, 3 of them have been doubles, one has been a home run. But I do think there is something to be said about the hammy. And if he's just not feeling entirely comfortable, I know that Vogelback was never going to be a plus base runner. I'm not delusional, but the fact that he can't maybe trust his legs to really fire offensively, and then when he is running, it's station to station, or maybe it's something less than that. It's tough to watch right now. So hopefully that hammy can get better, but he hasn't been good. And then you really start to look at the meat of the problem, and Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor, who carry the Mets for most of the season. And I still believe they will get back on track, because anytime they have gone through a slump this year, they've responded. But they're certainly in one over the last 13 games played. For Alonso, it's a 231 average. For Lindor, it's 241. For Alonso, 286 on base. Lindor, 305. 365 slugging for Pete, 333 for Lindor. 3 home runs between them, 2 by Pete, one from Lindor. One double by Pete, one triple by Lindor, and not a lot else. And they've both struck out more than they have gotten walks. So you look at a 651 OPS for Pete, a 638 OPS for Lindor, and yeah, when those two guys are in the lineup every day batting, third and fourth for you, your offense is going to struggle. So that has been obviously a big part of the problem. And then you have Brett Beatty, who has certainly not gotten off to a great start to his big league career, hitting 184 with a 244 on base percentage. Now he's dealing with a thumb injury. Hopefully it's just day to day, but he was unavailable to play in the game tonight. You got James McCann, who has not been good, a 500 OPS, 222 hitter. You got Tyler Naquin, who's fallen off a cliff, hitting 100 over his last 20 at-bats with 2 hits, but 13 strikeouts compared to just 2 walks. 2 runs scored, no RBIs for Naquin. And then you got Darren Ruff, who hasn't gotten a hit in his last 13 at-bats, 7 games played. It's a really tough role for him. I think with the Giants, he got a little bit more playing time against right-handed pitching. Not that I think the Mets should put him out there against righties, but maybe that helped him be in a little more of a rhythm before he did get those starts against lefties. And maybe that's part of what his struggles are right now. I think if we kind of look back at that trade, it still begs the question, did the Mets make a mistake by not giving Mark Vientos an audition? Because maybe Vientos would be better right now in this role. It's a really tough role to fill, but you had a month at least, if not 6 weeks, where JD Davis was almost getting everyday playing time, and you casted him off at the deadline, and he didn't improve his value to allow you to trade him at the deadline. He was really a throw-in on the Ruff trade. And I think about the fact that Ruff has struggled lately, and you wonder if Mark Vientos gets an opportunity and rakes as the DH, maybe you don't trade Ruff and maybe take that exact same package and you go out and get a left-handed reliever. Could you have found a reliever like Andrew Chafin for JD Davis and 3 pitching prospects? I don't know if you would have got him specifically, but I feel like you could have got somebody, and that's just kind of the issue. Hindsight's always 2020, and at the time, I didn't mind the Ruff trade, the Vogelback trade, or to a certain extent the Naquin trade. I thought that the Naquin trade of the 3 was the most head scratching, but I said, hey, it's better than Jankowski, and I still think that Vogelback, Ruff, and Naquin are better than Don Smith, JD Davis, and Jankowski. But when they're not hitting, it makes you wonder if the Mets did enough. But really, the bigger thing is Michael Givens was the only reliever they acquired, and he hasn't been great. You traded Colin Holderman. So, look, I think the Mets still have a good team that should still win this division if all things break the way I would expect. And the fact that the Rockies stole one and can maybe steal another against the Braves certainly helps your cause. But it's been rough for the last few weeks here. And it's time to acknowledge it a little bit because uh, we have yet to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe that comes when the Dodgers leave town and you get back to playing some of the worst teams in baseball. Nationals will be a welcome opponent this weekend. That is for certain. But there is one guy who's been awesome lately, Mark Canha. Let's end the show on a positive note. I'm going to talk about what Mark Canha has meant to the Mets this season. But first, a word from our sponsors. So I alluded to the numbers over the last 15 days from Mark Canha, but I wanted to go into a little more depth with them because they've been pretty special. In 11 games, he has 11 RBIs, 7 runs scored. He is 13 for 32. Talked about the 406 average, 486 on base, 906 slugging. Good for an OPS of nearly 1,400. He has 7 doubles and 3 home runs in his last 11 games played. Mark Canha talked about how he's starting to get a little more comfortable in the box lately. He has been comfortable all year, but he's starting to be able to tap into that power a little bit more, find the pitches that he really can put his A swing on, lift them a little bit, put some balls in the seats. That's been really nice for him. When he's hitting home runs, that's going to help your offense because you're not necessarily expecting them out of Mark Canha as much as some people looked at the stat sheet from his career when the Mets signed him and saw the 26 home runs in 2019. You have to take that with a grain of salt because that was the rabbit ball year. And outside of that, he doesn't have a 20 home run season in his career. So just getting to double digits is a quality season for Canha. He's at 11 now. But you look at his slash line for the season, 278 hitter. That would be a career high. And this is actually prior to the game today. So let's actually look at those updated stats. He's still at 278 with 376 on base. And slugging percentage now probably up a bit from where it is on Fangraphs. He's at 425, where Fangraphs has him at 418. That home run obviously juiced that up a bit. WRC Plus will improve after the homer. It's currently at we got it. 134 is the updated WRC Plus. That again measures hitters based on a league average of 100. So 134 WRC Plus computes it being 34% better than your league average hitter. His F4 on the season, which is wins above replacements, at 2.4. Last year, he had a 3.1 F4, so he's on line to have a similar season, if not slightly better. His best career year came in 2019, again, rabbit ball year, but he had a 4 F4 that year. What Mark Canha has given the Mets, though, is he's given them a legitimate starting outfield from left field, center field to right, something they haven't had in so long, whether it was Jeff McNeil helping you have a competent outfield in left, or if it was Dom Smith or JD Davis playing out of position, it just hasn't been a good situation for the Mets over the last couple of years. And now with Canha, Marte, and Nemo, the Mets are complete. In the past, this is a franchise with Jeff Wilpon that would have seen Michael Conforto walk, and they would have responded by just getting one guy. Now, maybe in the Wilpon era, it would have only been Canha, and Starling Marte wouldn't have been signed, but the fact that the Mets went and they got 2 guys has really helped the outfield as a whole this year. And Canha, between the leadership, between the way he stepped up, playing third base in a pinch that one game where they lost McNeil, and was it McNeil and Escobar? Or was it Guillorme? It might have been Guillorme and Escobar in the same outing. Whether it was, playing first base at times, playing some center field, what he's done just as a solid durable player has been huge. And he's also, like a lot of Mets hitters, he's been better in the clutch than without it. You look at what Fangraphs categorizes as low leverage, medium leverage, and high leverage situations. 245 hitter in low leverage, 311 in medium leverage, 346 hitter in high leverage spots. With men on base, 299 hitter. With men in scoring percentage, 289 hitter. With the bases empty, 258 hitter. So just seeing that approach, the way he has found holes in those RBI spots to drive in runs has been big. We talk about WRC plus. His WRC plus in high leverage situations this year is 242. It's 142% better than your league average hitter. It's pretty ridiculous. So between the clutch gene, between the defense, which if you look at the grades of it, it's not like he's grading out as an above average defender, but from watching him, He makes all the plays. He might not get to everything in the gaps, but he gets to enough. He's solid. He's a solid starting level player in the big leagues. And I think at times we don't appreciate the Mark Canhas of the world because they aren't the Starling Martes, right? The Starling Marte is the type of player that moves your needle significantly. But a Mark Canha raises the floor, and that's what he has done for the Mets all season. I think it's clear now after a couple of weeks here that Tyler Naquin should not be taking at bats away from Mark Canha. Let's put you in a weird spot because how do you get Naquin going when you need to play Canha, Nemo, and Marte every day? I don't know, but Canha's got reverse splits anyway. So he's been better when writers are on the mound. At this point, you're trying to win a division. It's not Little League. You don't have to get everyone playing time. I know Buck Showalter likes to because it keeps his guys fresh. But also, let's see this team go out and win the division and put the best 9 out there. And Mark Canha is certainly one of the best 9 when it comes to this Mets roster. But they got to get back on track, and they have the right guy on the mound to do it. Jacob deGrom going up against Tyler Anderson. Anderson's been really good this year. Clayton Kershaw will start, in fact, on Thursday. So this is a Mets team that has to figure out how to hit left-handed pitching to close out this series and at least give Jacob deGrom some run support because he can't do it all himself, especially now there's a DH in the National League and he can't hit for himself like he did last year. Anyway, that's going to be all for the show today. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go stay up to date with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.